I used to think weddings were supposed to be about love, about two souls promising forever. But for me, my sister's wedding became the stage for one of the most humiliating days of my life. My name is Clara, and my sister Jessica has always been the golden one, beautiful, confident, adored by everyone. Growing up, she was the girl who never had to try. Teachers loved her, relatives spoiled her, and my parents, well, they saw her as the shining star of our family. I was the quiet one, the listener, the helper, the shadow. So when Jessica announced she was getting married to Ethan, her longtime boyfriend, I smiled and congratulated her. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You'll be invisible again." The weeks leading up to the wedding were chaotic. Everyone was busy except me. No one asked my opinion. No one needed my help. Even when I offered to design invitations, my mother waved me off, saying, "Jessica already has people for that." Still, I tried to stay positive. I bought a pale blue dress, modest but elegant, and imagined myself sitting with my family, celebrating love. But things changed the moment the seating chart was posted online. I wasn't at the family table. I wasn't even at a friend's table. My name sat alone, table 19, tucked in the far corner of the reception hall. At first, I thought it was a mistake. So I called my mom. "Mom, I think something's wrong," I said carefully. She sighed. "Oh, Clara, it's not a big deal. Jessica's friends had already filled the main tables. We just had to put you somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "It's only for one evening. Don't make this about you." That was the moment I realized it wasn't an accident. The wedding day came faster than I wanted. The church was breathtaking. Candles flickering, soft music playing, Jessica gliding down the aisle like she was born to be adored. Everyone gasped when they saw her. I couldn't help but admire her, even as I felt a familiar sting inside. After the ceremony, we headed to the reception. I smiled politely, holding my small clutch close, searching for my name on the seating board again, hoping, praying they'd changed it. They hadn't. Table 19. In the back corner, next to the catering door. Alone. I could feel eyes on me as I walked there, curious, pitying, whispering. I sat down quietly, pretending to check my phone. My family was laughing at the main table, wine glasses clinking, cameras flashing. My parents didn't even glance in my direction. When the food arrived, the waiter looked confused. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. "No," I said softly. "Just me." He gave a sympathetic nod and walked away. I forced myself to eat a few bites, but my stomach twisted with every laugh echoing from the front. It wasn't just about being seated alone. It was the message it sent. I wasn't part of them. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself and went to the restroom. I stared at my reflection, my mascara slightly smudged, my shoulders trembling. I whispered to myself, "Don't cry, not here." Not for them. When I came back, someone was standing at my table. A tall man in a dark navy suit, holding a glass of champagne, glancing around like he was searching for someone. He looked at me, then smiled. Not the fake kind, but the warm, curious kind. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. I blinked. "No, but I don't think you want to sit here." "It's the lonely corner," he chuckled softly. "Then maybe I like corners." I hesitated, then gestured to the chair. "Be my guest." He sat down, his presence calm but confident. "I'm Daniel," he said, extending his hand. "Ethan's friend from college." "You must be—" "Clara, Jessica's sister." His eyebrows lifted. "Really? That's odd. What is?" He leaned closer. "I thought family would be at the front." I laughed bitterly. "You'd think so, wouldn't you?" For a moment, neither of us spoke. The band started playing a slow song and the lights dimmed. Couples drifted to the dance floor, Jessica and Ethan in the center, surrounded by cheers. I watched them spin and laugh, looking like a magazine cover. Daniel studied me quietly. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." "I'm fine," I said automatically. "You're lying," he said simply. "Your eyes say otherwise." I froze. He wasn't mocking me. He was just honest. He took a sip of his drink, then leaned closer, lowering his voice. How about this? Let's make a deal. Pretend you're here with me. I stared at him. What? Act like we're together. Smile when I talk. Let them see you're not sitting alone. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him right. Why would you do that? He shrugged. Because I can't stand watching someone treated like they don't belong. Something inside me cracked, the part that had been holding everything together all night. So I nodded. Okay. And just like that, everything shifted. Daniel turned slightly toward me, his voice animated, his eyes bright. He told stories, made me laugh, and asked questions about my work, my dreams. For the first time that night, I wasn't invisible. I caught my mother glancing over, confusion flickering across her face. Jessica noticed too. Her smile faltered for just a second before she turned back to her husband. Daniel noticed. Looks like someone's curious. Someone? I smirked. You mean my sister, he grinned. Let her wonder. The more we talked, the more natural it felt. He wasn't just pretending, he was seeing me. Not as Jessica's sister, not as the quiet one, but as someone worth noticing. At one point, he leaned closer and whispered, You know, they're missing out. You've got the most genuine smile in this whole place. I looked down, blushing. You don't even know me. Maybe not yet, he said softly. But I'd like to. As the night went on, people began to notice. Some guests smiled at us. Others looked confused, whispering among themselves. My mother finally approached during dessert, her polite mask cracking slightly. Clara, she said tightly, glancing at Daniel. Who's your friend? I smiled sweetly. This is Daniel. We came together. She blinked, taken aback. Oh, I didn't realize you were bringing someone. Daniel smiled easily. Last-minute decision. Hope that's all right. My mother forced a smile, then turned back toward the main table, whispering something to Jessica. Daniel leaned over and whispered, That was satisfying. I laughed genuinely this time. You have no idea. Later, when the dance floor filled again, Daniel stood and held out his hand. Come on, let's show them table 19 can dance too. I hesitated. I'm not really, he didn't let me finish. Trust me, and for once I did. He led me to the dance floor. The song was slow, the lights soft. As his hand rested gently on my back, I felt a strange mix of comfort and disbelief. For the first time all evening, I wasn't shrinking into the background. I was standing in the middle of the room being seen. My mother's eyes widened. Jessica's jaw tightened. And for a moment, I didn't care. Daniel smiled down at me. You're doing great, I whispered. You have no idea what this means to me. He looked at me seriously. Actually, I think I do. When the song ended, applause filled the room. People were smiling at us, nodding approvingly. I stepped back, laughing softly, my cheeks warm. Thank you, I said. For what? For saving me from the worst night of my life. He shook his head. You saved yourself. I just gave you a reason to look up. That night, as I sat in my car after the reception, I looked back at the glowing hall in the distance, at the place where I'd been humiliated, then unexpectedly rescued. Part of me wondered if Daniel was real, or just a kind illusion that appeared when I needed it most. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the same person who had walked in alone. Something had changed, and I had no idea that this stranger, the man who sat at table 19, would soon become the reason my entire family would have to face the truth they'd buried for years. Because sometimes kindness isn't random. Sometimes it's destiny wearing a stranger's face. The morning after the wedding, I woke up to sunlight creeping through my blinds, my phone buzzing endlessly on the nightstand. Missed calls, messages. My mom. Where did you find that man? Jessica. We need to talk. Even Ethan, my new brother-in-law, had texted, Can we meet privately? I blinked at the screen, half amused, half nervous. All because of one evening, one man who'd simply sat beside me when no one else would. I smiled a little to myself and scrolled through my photos. There was one of Daniel and me dancing. Someone must have snapped it. We looked like we belonged together. It felt unreal, like a scene from a movie. But as I stared longer, something inside me stirred. Who was he, really? I didn't have his number. We hadn't exchanged contacts. All I had was his first name and the memory of his kindness. That day, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. But as I stepped out of my apartment building, a familiar voice called, "Clara?" I turned. There he was, standing by a sleek black car, leaning casually against the door, that same half-smile on his face. "Daniel?" I said, surprised. How did you even find me?" He grinned. "Ethan told me where you lived. I needed to return this." He held up a small silver bracelet. "My bracelet." I gasped. "I thought I lost that at the reception." "You did," he said softly, handing it to me. "It fell under the table when you got up to dance." I took it, my fingers brushing his. "Thank you. You didn't have to come all this way." "I wanted to," he said. "And I figured you might need someone to talk to after last night." That caught me off guard. "Why would you think that?" He smiled faintly. "Because I've been where you are, invisible in plain sight." We ended up at a small coffee shop near my place. He ordered black coffee, and I got my usual cappuccino. The atmosphere was warm, quiet, the kind of place where people spoke softly, but their words carried weight. "So," I began, "you said you were Ethan's friend from college?" He stirred his coffee slowly. "That's what I told you, yes." I frowned. "Told me? So, that's not true?" He sighed, meeting my eyes. "Not exactly." Something cold slid down my spine. "Then who are you, really?" He leaned forward, his tone calm but serious. "I met Ethan once, at a charity gala 3 years ago. He worked for a company that I was investigating." "Investigating?" He nodded. "I'm a financial analyst, sometimes a consultant, sometimes more than that. I dig into numbers, companies, and money trails. And Ethan's firm, let's just say they had some questionable records, transactions that didn't add up." I blinked, trying to process. "You're saying Ethan's company was laundering money?" He hesitated, then said, "Not exactly laundering, but using false client accounts to move funds. And one of those accounts was connected to your parents." I felt my stomach twist. "What?" Daniel's voice softened. "I didn't plan to tell you this so soon, Clara. But when I got invited to that wedding, through Ethan, I realized who you were. Jessica's sister. The one your family never talks about much." I could barely breathe. "You came to the wedding to spy on them?" He shook his head. "No, Tasby. Confirm. I thought maybe I was wrong. But the way they treated you, it told me everything I needed to know." I sat back, heart pounding. "You're saying my parents are involved in something illegal?" "I'm saying they're part of a deal that Ethan and his partners benefited from," Daniel said carefully. "And it's connected to a company that's under federal review right now." My throat went dry. "And Jessica?" He hesitated. "She might not know the full story, but she's benefiting from it too. Her wedding was paid for through that same account." I stared at him, shaking my head slowly. "That can't be true. My parents aren't perfect, but they're not criminals." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Then how do you explain the $60,000 transfer from that account to your sister's wedding planner?" I froze. "How do you even know that?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something, then turned it toward me. "A spreadsheet. Names, dates, bank codes. My parents' company name appears beside transactions labeled private events and consulting fees." It felt like the floor had been ripped from under me. I pressed my hands to my temples. "Why are you telling me this? Why me?" "Because," Daniel said softly, "you're the only one who doesn't seem to be part of it." He looked at me with genuine concern. "I didn't just come to that wedding by chance, Clara. I came because I wanted to see for myself what kind of people your family really were. And what I saw was a woman they tried to hide." Tears burned behind my eyes. "They didn't try to hide me. They just didn't want you to see," he finished gently. "They isolated you even in public. Why do you think you were sitting alone at that wedding?" "It wasn't random." My hands trembled. "You think they wanted to embarrass me?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, because you refused to sign that document last year. The one about their family business expansion. Remember?" My breath caught. How do you know about that? I've seen it. Your name was on the list of shareholders they wanted to clear. It all came rushing back, that weird meeting at our old house where my parents had asked me to sign some papers for tax. Simplification. I refused because I didn't understand them. They called me ungrateful. Now it made sense. They needed my signature to cover their tracks. I sat there, speechless, staring into my untouched coffee. So what happens now? I whispered. Daniel looked at me carefully. That depends on you. I can take this to the authorities. Or I can wait, let you decide how to handle it. But you need to know what you're standing in the middle of. I don't even know where to start. Start by not believing everything they tell you, he said softly. Start by protecting yourself. He handed me a small USB drive. Everything I just told you is in here. Documents, statements, proof. Keep it safe, and don't tell them you know. I took it hesitantly. Why are you helping me? He paused, his eyes meeting mine. Because when I saw you at that table, something in me broke. I saw someone being silenced by people who were supposed to love her. And I've seen enough people like that lose everything because they trusted the wrong family. His voice softened even more. You don't deserve to be their victim. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his words, the spreadsheet, the USB drive burning like fire in my purse. Were my parents really capable of that? Of using my name for money? Around 2 a.m., I finally opened my laptop and plugged in the USB. The files were neatly organized. Reports, receipts, hidden accounts. One folder was named Clara Authorization. My heart dropped. It was a forged document with my signature. A scanned copy of something I'd never signed, used to authorize a transfer of $120,000. I covered my mouth with my hands, my body trembling. They'd faked my approval. They'd used me, and the worst part? It was dated 2 months ago. I called Daniel immediately. They forged my signature, I whispered, my voice cracking. He answered instantly. I know, I was afraid of that. You need to be careful, Clara. If this investigation goes public, they might try to pin everything on you. What do I do? Meet me tomorrow, he said. There's more you need to see. I hesitated. Daniel, what if you're wrong? He sighed. I hope I am. But deep down, you already know I'm not. The next day, I drove out to meet him at a park overlooking the city. He was waiting on a bench, hands in his pockets, looking troubled. Before he could speak, I blurted out, I can't believe they'd do this to me. He looked up at me, his eyes full of something I hadn't seen before. Sadness, but also admiration. You're stronger than you think, Clara. Most people would have ignored the truth. You faced it. I don't feel strong, I admitted. You are, he said, and you're going to need that strength. Because this isn't just about your parents or Jessica. There's something bigger coming, I frowned. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and showed me a message, an anonymous email. It read, tell her to keep quiet, or we'll make her disappear too. A chill ran through me. What does that mean? Daniel looked grim. It means someone knows I'm talking to you, and they're scared. I swallowed hard. So now I'm in danger? He nodded slowly. Maybe not yet. But you will be if they find out how much you know. My voice trembled. Then why are you still helping me? He met my eyes and said quietly, because you deserve the truth, even if it destroys everything. And that's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, because the people who'd forced me to sit alone at my sister's wedding might soon try to silence me forever. I didn't sleep the night after I saw my forged signature. I sat at my kitchen table with the USB drive in front of me like it was a small bomb, counting my breaths and trying to decide who I wanted to be when the sun came up, the quiet daughter who swallowed humiliation, or the woman who finally said, enough. By morning, my hands were steady. I backed everything up. I copied the files to a cloud folder with a passphrase only I knew. I printed the most important pages and sealed them in a manila envelope. I scheduled 2 emails, one to a reporter Daniel trusted, one to a general address at a federal office, both set to send if I didn't disable them by midnight. I texted Daniel. I'm ready. He replied almost instantly. Then we do it today. Do what? We stop pretending you owe them silence. We met at a co-working space near downtown because he said it had cameras and a front desk and a lot of witnesses. A place hard to make someone disappear from, he joked. And I half laughed. Half shivered. He had a plan, precise and calm, like he'd built this kind of storm before. First, you confront them but not alone, he said. Second, we record everything. Third, we give them a door. They can come clean or they can try to bury you deeper. Either way, we'll be ready. And the authorities? Already circling, he said. But your voice matters. Your refusal to be their scapegoat matters. He laid out the pieces like a chessboard. He showed me a letter from an attorney willing to represent me if things escalated. He set up a small recording app on my phone that would stream audio to a secure folder the moment I tapped the volume button 3 times. He slid a slim black device across the table. Backup recorder, he said. Pretend it's a lipstick, I nodded. I didn't feel brave, but I felt clear, and sometimes clarity is the only kind of courage we get. Why are you doing this? I asked, not for the first time. He looked at me for a long second, then away. Because once I didn't. And I lost someone I loved to people who thought money let them decide which lives mattered. He swallowed. I won't watch it happen again. It wasn't the whole story, but it was enough to carry me through the door. I chose the battleground, my parents' house. The one with the perfect hedges and the framed photos of Jessica in every hallway, and a single picture of me in the upstairs landing. Tilted, like even the wall didn't quite know where to put me. I texted the family group. We need to talk. Today, 5 p.m., all of you. To my surprise, they didn't argue. Maybe they wanted to get ahead of what I knew. Maybe they thought they still could. At 4:50, I pulled up to the curb. Daniel parked a block away just like we agreed, so no one could accuse me of bringing an outsider into family business. He squeezed my hand before I got out. You call, I come, he said. 2 rings, hang up. I'll walk in. Okay. Clara, he added, and I turned back. No matter how loud they get, you don't owe them your fear, I breathed in. I know. They were waiting in the living room like a jury that had already decided the verdict. My mother was on the edge of the couch, hands folded tight, mouth thinner than I'd ever seen it. My father was by the fireplace, chin lifted, gaze like a judge. Jessica, in a soft cream sweater, was trying to look innocent. Ethan, with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. Finally, my mother said, now explain yourself. Who was that man at the wedding, and why were you making a scene? Good to see you too, I said, and sat in the chair closest to the door. I set my purse beside me, the recorder already running. My heart was thudding, but I kept my voice soft. We're not here to talk about the wedding seating chart. This again, my father muttered. Always the victim. You forged my signature, I said. The room went silent in a way that made my skin buzz. My mother's face didn't move at first. Then she laughed, a sharp little sound. Don't be ridiculous. I slid a printed page from the manila envelope and placed it on the coffee table. Authorization dated June 14th. The signature looks like mine. But it isn't. It authorized a transfer of $120,000 from an account under my name, an account I didn't know existed. My father didn't look down. Where did you get that? From the same place I got the ledger that shows $60,000 to Jessica's wedding planner from a shell account linked to Ethan's firm. Jessica flinched. That's not... And the transfer's labeled consulting fees to your company, I added, looking at my father. Fees for... what exactly? Be careful, Ethan said, finally speaking, his voice low. Throw around words like that and you could make legal trouble for yourself, I snorted. I'm not throwing words. I brought receipts. I tapped my purse lightly as if the truth inside could purr. And before any of you suggest this is a misunderstanding, I should tell you there are copies with time-stamped backups off-site. If anything happens to me, all of it goes to the press and the feds. My mother's mouth trembled. How dare you threaten us? How dare you use me? I said, and my voice stopped shaking. How dare you put my name on a line I didn't sign? Then sit me at table 19 like I was a stain you could hide in the corner. We told you to sign last year because it was simpler for the family, my father said, his jaw tight. You refused. You made this difficult. Difficult. I laughed once. Is that the word for illegal now? Lower your voice, my mother hissed. The neighbors. Let them hear, I said. And then I took a breath and made my voice quiet again. Or you can tell the truth for once. You needed my signature to clean up a trail. I didn't give it. So you took it. It isn't a crime to help family, Jessica blurted, and everyone looked at her. She flushed, swallowed. We're not bad people, Clara. We had a lot riding on this. The wedding, the business, Dad's deal. Ethan said, I repeated, looking at him. You're very comfortable with other people paying for your good life. Ethan's polite smile faded. Watch yourself. No, I said. You watch me. And then my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down. A one-word text from Daniel. Neighbors. I didn't know what it meant, but it calmed me. He was close enough to see the street. Close enough to hear if I needed him. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I didn't know I could sound like that. Steady. Like I'd been rehearsing this voice my whole life. You're going to acknowledge the signature is not mine. You're going to move that account out of my name. You're going to return the funds tied to my authorization and disclose the transfers that used me. Or we let someone with a badge do the asking. You think you can come into my house and make demands, my father said, finally stepping toward me. The old anger rolled off him like heat. I had seen it since I was small. The anger that said I was an inconvenience to the story of his perfect family. You are nothing without this family. You'll destroy your sister's marriage. You'll ruin us. I didn't ruin anything, I said softly. You did. He stared at me like he couldn't find my face in the one he'd memorized, like he was searching for the girl who would flinch first and apologize. I didn't move. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Not kindly. Fine, you want the truth? We signed for you. It's family money. It ends in family hands. That is how the world works. My thumb slid along the side of my phone, 3 quick presses. The app began streaming. And if you had done your part last year, he went on, voice rising, we wouldn't have had to clean up after you. But you wanted to play stubborn, like your opinions matter. They don't. Not here. Jessica looked like her chest had caved in. Dad? Enough, he snapped. Don't speak to her like that, I said. He swung his glare back to me, like he'd finally found a target that gave him pleasure. You will be silent in my house. I won't, I said, and stood. And then the front door opened. Daniel didn't stride in like a hero. He walked in like a man who didn't want to startle anyone, like he was entering a sick room, not a battlefield. He nodded to each of them in turn, calm, courteous. Apologies for the intrusion. Clara called me. Who are you? My father demanded. Daniel Reeves, he said, and that last name made Ethan flinch, the way a man flinches when he hears a storm has reached his street. We met at the gala 3 years ago, Ethan. Your firm remembers me. I told you weren't welcome here, my mother said to me, but she was staring at Daniel like he had just pulled back the ceiling and let the sky look in. I'm here as a witness, Daniel said, and as someone who advised Clara to give you a chance to make this right before other people got involved. We don't need advice from a stranger, my father said. You will, Daniel said simply. Sooner than you think. Ethan was sweating now. He looked at Jessica and then at my father, then at me. Let's not escalate. We can fix this quietly, Daniel repeated, eyebrows lifting a fraction. Is that what you told the clients whose accounts you moved money through? That it was quiet so it wasn't a crime? Ethan's mouth thinned. Careful. You sent me an anonymous threat, I said, turning to him. Tell her to keep quiet or we'll make her disappear too. Ethan's eyes flashed. Prove it. Already did, Daniel said. We kept the headers. My father pointed at the door. Get out. No, I said. It broke then. Not like a glass, but like a dam. Everyone spoke at once. My mother called me ungrateful. My father called me delusional. Jessica said, please, please, we can talk, we can fix it, don't do this to us. Ethan said lawyer words that sounded like a lid snapping on a box. I waited for a gap and then said the only thing that mattered. I will not be your scapegoat. Silence dropped like a curtain. In that quiet, I watched it happen in Jessica's face. A stitch coming loose, a small truth tugging free. She looked at me as if seeing a person she owed something to. Her voice, when it came, was small. Did you really use her name, Dad? Jessica, my mother said sharply. Did you? She repeated. Everything we did was to protect this family, my father said. She flinched. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you need, he snapped. She turned to Ethan. Did you know? Ethan didn't speak. Her eyes filled with something I had never seen there for me before. Pity. But not the kind that hurts, the kind that says, I'm sorry I didn't look sooner. Clara, she whispered. I didn't know about your name. I believed her. I don't know why. Maybe because for once she didn't try to be perfect. She looked ruined by the thought of it. I know, I said. But now you do. Daniel checked his watch. Just a small flick of his eyes. Our timer was running. If this conversation didn't turn by 5:30, we would move to step 2. Here is the path that avoids more harm, Daniel said, voice even. You acknowledge the forged authorization. You move the account out of Clara's name and state that effect. You return the funds that implicated her. You cooperate with the review already underway. My father let out a short, ugly laugh. And if we decline your generous terms? Then you learn what happens when the girl at table 19 stands up, Daniel said. And even my mother blinked at that, because he said it like a blessing. Not a threat. I'm done, my father said, and reached for my purse. I was quicker. Don't touch me, I said. And I didn't have to raise my voice because a new sound filled the room. Tires on gravel, doors opening, footsteps. My father froze and then the doorbell rang. Once, twice, firm, official. My mother went pale. Who is that? I looked at Daniel. He didn't smile, but his eyes warmed for a second. The people who make sure the neighbors stop whispering and start listening. I opened the door. 2 agents stood there, not with handcuffs or guns drawn, just with clipboards and the kind of politeness that means you're already past the point of charm. One of them showed a badge, spoke calmly to my parents. We'd like to ask a few questions about some accounts. Everything that happened after that felt both fast and slow, like a dream you can't stop but also can't speed up. There were questions in the foyer, then in the study. Papers exchanged hands. Ethan tried to make a phone call and then didn't. My mother cried. My father raged and then stopped raging and started calculating. Jessica sat with me in the kitchen and stared at the marble like it could pray for her. I didn't know, she said again, and I didn't tell her it was her job to know. I put a glass of water in her hand. She looked at me like it was a gift she thought she wasn't allowed to accept from me. Why did they hate you so much? She asked, almost to herself. They didn't, I said. They loved the version of me that didn't ask questions. She closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry. Be better, I said gently. For yourself. When the agents left, they took copies of several documents and one of Ethan's devices. They didn't take anyone in handcuffs. This wasn't television. This was the long, slow undoing of a story that had been written in money and secrecy, and then lit on fire by a girl who refused to disappear. I stood to go. My mother didn't look at me, but her shoulders shook. My father watched me like I was a problem he hadn't solved yet. You will regret this, he said. I already regretted staying quiet, I said. Jessica reached for my hand, squeezed it once and didn't try to keep me outside. The air felt like a bath of something clean. Daniel was by the curb, hands in his pockets. And when he saw me, he didn't ask if I was okay. He just let me walk out, my shaking and then my stillness beside him until my breath matched the evening. You did it, he said. We did it, I said. He shook his head. No, you walked into the house that taught you not to make noise and made the exact right noise. He paused. I'm proud of you. It shocked me how much those words mattered. How much I had wanted to hear them from someone who meant them. What now? I asked. Now we wait, he said. And we keep you safe. And you live a life that wasn't chosen for you by people who needed your silence more than they loved your voice. We started walking toward his car. I thought that was the end of the story he owed me, but he stopped and faced me, and I knew there was one more door he had to open. There's something else I need to tell you, he said. Not about them. About me, I nodded. Okay. I told you I once didn't help someone, he said, his voice roughening. It was my sister. When we were kids, our stepfather used her name to open accounts. When she found out, she told my mother, and my mother begged her to keep quiet, to protect the family. I was in college. I thought I could fix it from the inside by waiting, by watching, by collecting proof. I waited too long. He emptied what she had and left. She never forgave me for the waiting. She left too. He looked at the street, then back at me. When I saw you at that table, I didn't see a stranger. I saw the pause before a person disappears into someone else's plans. I wasn't going to wait again. I don't know if he expected me to be angry that he'd come into my life with more motives than kindness. I wasn't. I felt something that surprised me. Gratitude. For the honesty, for the rescue that wasn't a fairy tale, for the fact that his saving me had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with conscience. Thank you, I said. For what? For noticing, I said. For sitting down, he laughed softly. Turns out I like corners. Me too, I said. They're good places to start. The news didn't explode the next day. It simmered. The review widened. Ethan stepped back from his firm to focus on family matters. My father released a statement acknowledging clerical errors related to a relative's account and promising full cooperation. My name was not in that statement. It was nowhere. For once, my absence felt like protection rather than erasure. Jessica texted me daily. Sometimes it was a single heart. Sometimes it was a long paragraph that read like a girl learning her own voice. She left Ethan for a while and moved into a small apartment with a balcony garden she sent me pictures of. She started asking me real questions. I started answering them. We were not healed. But we were honest, and sometimes that is the only bridge that doesn't collapse. My mother called once, late, when her voice was soft with something that sounded like a person and not a role. She didn't say sorry. She said, "Are you eating? And your father is difficult. And I am tired, and I still have your recital programs in a box." I listened. I told her, yes, I'm eating. I told her I was tired too. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a beginning that didn't demand a conclusion. Daniel and I learned from each other without rushing. Coffee became walking. Walking became dinner. Dinner became a habit. He didn't rescue me anymore. He didn't need to. He asked about the book I wanted to write and downloaded a ridiculous number of sample fonts to help me choose a cover style, even though we both knew it was early. Sometimes our hands found each other without making a speech about it. It was simple. It was the opposite of the life I had been taught to live. Loud with performance, quiet with pain. It was quiet with peace. One evening, we returned to the reception hall from the wedding. The string lights were up for a different party. We stood at the edge of the empty dance floor and watched a new couple sway to a song I didn't know. Daniel glanced toward the back corner. There, he said with a small smile. Table 19. I looked at it, that lonely little island I had been exiled to, and then back at the center of the room. Not mine anymore, I said. He held out his hand, a little sheepish, a little earnest. Dance? I'm terrible, I warned. I like corners, he said again, as if that explained everything. We moved to the middle of the floor. We were clumsy and a little offbeat. We laughed more than we swayed. No one stared. No one whispered. No one had the power to seat me anywhere I didn't choose. When the song ended, I felt the ache of a day that carries both loss and relief. I thought of the girl who sat alone. I wanted to tell her something, and maybe I finally could. Here is what I would say. You are not furniture to be arranged in the dark. You are not a signature to be borrowed. You are not a seat number on a chart that proves your value. You are the person who stands up in a room where you were taught to bow. You are the noise that makes a new kind of music. You are the hand that presses 3 times on the side of a phone and calls in the truth. You are the one who learns that sometimes a stranger sees you because he remembers what it felt like not to be seen. You are not a table. You are a voice. And if anyone ever tries to put you back in the corner, remember this. Corners are where revolutions are drawn in chalk before they take to the streets. The investigation kept going. Maybe there will be courtrooms. Maybe there will be settlements. Maybe my father will hire better lawyers than the truth. That part of the story is long, and it isn't the part that makes me breathe easier at night. What is smaller? Jessica's hand on mine across a cafe table. My mother is sending a photo of a box labeled Clara's School Plays. A text from an unknown number that said, "I'm sorry," and I knew it was my father, and I didn't reply, not yet, not out of cruelty, but because I am allowed to decide the pace of my healing. And Daniel brought me a cheap cupcake with a single candle and sang off-key because it was the 1-month anniversary of the night he asked me to pretend. We laughed so hard that Thiesing ended up on the kitchen counter. We were happy in the way that doesn't ask the world's permission. Later, when the lights were low and the city hummed outside my window, he traced a small circle on my palm with his finger, like the start of a signature. "I don't need you to sign anything," he whispered. "Just don't disappear." "I won't," I said, and I meant it, because I had already learned the most important lesson. Sometimes you don't wait for the world to offer you a seat. You move your own chair to the center and start the dance. That is how a war ends. That is how a life begins.